Okay guys, welcome back. Very excited to be here with you today and sharing this next training. First and foremost though, I just wanted to say I'm blown away as always. Doesn't matter how many times we teach this stuff. Doesn't matter how many times we go through the best day ever with someone. Like the results are always the same. People start to experience themselves as different versions of themselves. When you start doing those intentions, you start to notice the runs on the board from very, very early stages. And it's so great to see so many of you guys participating in that, sharing that, coming back to me, telling me that you're already getting results just in the last couple of days, which is fantastic. I guess for some of you, you might be going, okay, cool. We can see the target now. I understand that the person I am needs to change, but I've been trying to do this for a really long time. Like, what's going to be different? How, like, I kind of heard maybe some of this stuff before. Now, what's going to be different? Now, what's going to be different with you is what I'm sharing with you today. What I'm sharing with you today, I remember exactly where I was when I first learned this stuff, and I've honestly, it has transformed my life beyond measure, right? So if you're looking for something new that you've never heard before, that is actually the one thing that is holding you back from reaching your full potential, from stopping negative patterns, from stopping beating yourself up and self-doubt, or maybe, you know, feeling like you've constantly got more on your plate that you can deal with, then this is the one thing. We're going to actually explain why that is, and then the one thing that you need to gain mastery over in order to change and make this a long-term kind of shift for yourself, right? Now, some of you might actually be sitting there going, but man, I don't even really know what my full potential is. I don't even really know what I want long-term. And my answer to that would be, well, of course you don't. Like we said back in the first training, we've got a worldview that is limiting us. All of us, we all have a worldview that was born out of our experience and then what we made those experiences mean. And so if you don't know what you want, if you don't know what your full potential is, then this work's even more important to look at, because that tells us that you're strictly limited in something that is well beyond what's realistic for you and what's capable for you. And again, this video, this training right now is where I'm going to explain to you what that invisible force is that's holding you back. Right? So let's get into it. Basically, and this is so important, guys, like I just can't stress how important this work is. Basically, anytime you have a goal, whatever the goal is, I don't care what the goal is, right? And this, you know, like it might be to have a better body, might be have better health, have healthy relationships, stop drinking too much, stop, you know, holding myself back, make 20 million bucks, excel in my career, don't care, right? Whatever the goal is. If I'm not doing what it takes to get there, if I know what I should be doing and I'm not applying it, if I only get motivation short term but then end up falling back off the wagon, right? If any of that stuff is happening, basically, if I'm not nailing this and it's actually something that I want and I think about regularly, there's only one reason for that. And the reason for that is that I might want this every single day. I might think about it. I might even cry myself to sleep about this sometimes, but I'm more connected to something else. So I want this, I'm more connected to that. That, in every single client we've ever worked with, myself included, that's more than a few thousand people now. That thing you are more connected to is going to be a fear. Now, it's not a fear of heights or spiders or snakes or catching coronavirus, right? It's not a fear like that. It's going to be a fear of having a feeling. You might be sitting there going, what? What is this guy talking about? What do you mean having a feeling? Or you might be sitting there going, oh shit, he's going there, right? And the truth is, yeah, we are going there. Now, the good news is that as human beings, we only have 3 core fears which drive all of our behavior. That's me, that's you, that's everyone you know. That's the people you look up to and aspire to be. Right? 3 core fears that drive all of our behavior. You will have all 3 of these, but you'll have one which is your primary. And I can bet that one which is your primary, which sticks out the most, is probably causing 80 to 90% of the stuff that's going on for you. 80, 90% of the reasons that you're not achieving what you want. 80, 90% of the reason that you're not reaching your full potential, or you're holding yourself back, or you're beating yourself up, or you're constantly stressed all the time, right? I guarantee it. So the good news is that you'll have all 3, but you'll have one of them which is causing most of this stuff. And if you can gain mastery over this one primary fear, and then subsequently the other 2, which isn't as hard, this stuff will go away. and you will begin to experience yourself as a new person. Not because you made it up or put it on a vision board, but because you are a new person, because you will have proven to yourself and to the world that that is who you are. So this is really important. Listen in, guys, and make sure, listen for the one that sticks out the most or that's the most obvious. So the first core fear that we all have is what we call a fear of powerlessness. Basically meaning, I just hate feeling out of control. I hate it when things don't go my way, right? I hate it when things don't pan out the way that I want them to. Now that makes sense. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, wow, I can't wait for everything to go wrong today and have a really shit day, right? That would be weird. That would be strange. Yeah. So what happens? So there's nothing wrong with with wanting to be in control. There's nothing wrong with wanting things to go a particular way. That's normal. That's healthy, right? What's not cool and not okay is when, in an effort to avoid those feelings of being powerless, we go to our head, to our mind, to try and think my way out of that problem, to try and gain power over the situation or the person, or the thought, or the feeling, which is quite literally impossible. Right? We see this a lot in a lot of really intelligent people, because you guys have this evidence that if I just think hard enough about this problem, I'll come up with a solution. And if it is a work problem or an intellectual problem, that's the case. But in this situation, when I hate feeling powerless and I want to change that, you're trying to think your way out of your feeling problem, because powerless is a feeling, and that's literally impossible. That's like trying to, fix a broken window with a hammer. It's just the wrong tool for the job. So what does this look like? So when I feel powerless and I try to think my way out of it, what does that actually look like? That looks like stress. It looks like overthinking. It looks like meticulous planning, or trying to control things in my diary or whatnot, or my environment. For some people that can be keeping a really tidy house, making sure my diary is always right, my physical hygiene or whatever. Yeah? Essentially it's like some sort of planning or control. Some people it's food. Yeah? Other people getting angry. And that's anger expressed externally, because if I'm screaming, screw you, at least I feel in control. It can also be anger expressed internally, at myself. What's wrong with you? Why'd you do that? You suck. You should have done better, blah, 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 blah. Right? Again, when I'm in that heat of that emotion, when I'm in the heat of that thought, I feel in control. I feel powerful. So I'm getting what I'm trying to avoid, which is I'm trying to avoid feeling out of control. And so my mind comes up with strategies to gain control. That's why people panic buy toilet paper when the pandemic hits, by the way. Makes no real sense when you think it out, but I just got to be in control, and I just don't want to miss out. So I just got to make sure that I, have some. And now everyone else is doing it, so I better do it. I don't want to be one of those people, but I also don't want to miss out. So I'm going to make sure I get some. I'm trying to avoid feeling out of control. I'm trying to avoid having the feeling that I would have if I were to be out of control. Does it make sense, guys? A lot of people then do this with food, alcohol, drugs, work, right? They're behaviors that I can try to control and manipulate the way I feel with. Now, the result is always the same. Short term, you will feel in control. Short term, you drink the alcohol, you overthink, you stress, you have a conversation, you think of responses to an argument that you had 3 weeks ago when you're in the shower this morning and what you should have said. You will feel powerful in that moment, short term. But long term, you'll feel exactly what you're trying to avoid. You'll feel more out of control and more powerless because I didn't say it. Or because shit, now I'm drunk again, I didn't mean to, I didn't want to, I ate the food that I didn't really want to, or I got angry, or I said the thing that I didn't want to say. So that's powerlessness, guys, that's the first one. Any control freaks are putting their hand up right now. Second core fear is what we call the fear of abandonment. Now this one's kind of funny, guys, and the reason it's funny, I do a fair bit of speaking, corporate speaking for work, and I can guarantee you, we can get a couple hundred people in the room and I'll turn up and they'll mention the word abandonment and everybody looks at the floor every time. Or they kind of death stare me, the tough old guy death stare me. He's like, no mate, definitely not me, don't know what you're talking about. And the reason that's funny is because the fear of abandonment is one that we all have, and it's the one we all try to pretend that we don't have. The big stuff is like, what happens if he or she leaves me? What happens if they cheated on me? What happens if I die alone? What happens if, I never found the one? What happens if everybody knew that stuff about me? Or I lost my job? That's kind of like the really big stuff. The more day-to-day, regular stuff is like, I could never do that, I could never wear that, I could never say that, I could never post that online, I could never fully be true to myself, follow my heart, do the thing that I know is right because of what they might think about me, or because of what might happen if. Now guys, it's really important to understand this also makes sense, and to a degree it's actually quite healthy. Human beings are herd mammals, right? That means we need each other to survive, right? So if you went back a couple thousand years onto the plains of Africa and you were living in a herd and you got kicked out of the cave at 2 a.m, your chances of optimal survival are very low. In fact, chances are you're probably going to die unpleasantly. So it makes sense that there's this little part of me that goes, well, I need to do whatever it takes to make sure I can stay in that herd. Now, we're not living in herds in the original sense of the word anymore, but you kind of are still living in herds within your workplace, within your friendship circle, within your relationship, within your family, within your extended family, within your community, your state, your country, your race, right? Being the human race. And it makes sense then that we're going to, like I see the memes on socials all the time, I don't care what anybody thinks about you. I call bullshit. Of course we care what other people think about us, you always will, right? Where it becomes a problem though, and this is incredibly important, like this is incredibly important, life-changing bit of info, and when it lands for you, you will get it, right? So there's nothing wrong with wanting to make sure that, we don't get abandoned by the herd. But where it becomes an issue is in an effort to avoid those feelings of abandonment, i.e. judged, i.e. lonely, i.e. alone. In an effort to avoid those feelings, we begin to abandon ourselves. Just hear that. In an effort to avoid being abandoned, we begin abandoning ourselves. So saying yes when I mean no. People pleasing. Trying to be a really good partner or co-worker or friend or lover or daughter or husband or wife or whatever it is, right? Just trying to play my role and do the right thing, to the point where I'm not being true to me. Basically, any time you're not true to yourself, right, is a time where you will abandon yourself. Abandon yourself with behaviors like food, sex, drugs, work, shopping, gambling, like we said, being a really good friend, being a really good worker, being a really good parent. Nothing wrong with any of those things, by the way, but when I'm doing them in a way which isn't in line with who I really know I want to be or could be or should be, you will be abandoning yourself. And every time you abandon yourself, you lose a bit of self-esteem, you lose a bit of self-worth, you lose a little bit of self-belief, and over time that adds up, right? Over time, people start to drop in confidence. Over time, these behaviors start to become the norm. And as soon as I risk being abandoned, as soon as I risk being hurt, right? Might be in a relationship. As soon as I risk, leaving and the relationship being over, I'll come back and do those behaviors that aren't good for me. Now, you do that the first time, no big deal. You actually feel relief. The relationship doesn't end. But you do that time and time and time again over weeks, months, years, and then eventually decades, you will start to lose yourself. And you'll feel like you can't leave. Or you'll finally get up the courage to leave and you leave. You go, I don't really know who I am. I don't even really know what I like. I don't even know what I do, because you've lost yourself in that self-abandonment. Why? Because through your actions, what you've displayed is that what you guys think about me is more important than what I think about me. So why would you be confident? You shouldn't be. Why would you have high levels of self-worth and self-esteem? You shouldn't. Doesn't mean you won't excel in areas of your life, but you won't inside at your core fully love and accept yourself and know that you can do and reach your full potential. And that's what we're talking about here. So that's the self-abandonment. Third core fear, and this is my primary one, is what we call the fear of worthlessness. The theme song for us, lots of high achievers in this category, the theme song for us is kind of like, as I am, I'm not good enough. So I need to do more, be more, have more, achieve more, somehow, become a better version of myself and postpone my happiness until I get there, because then I'll feel like I've totally made it. Or there I'll be happy, or there things will be good. Problem is, that day never comes. I go and achieve stuff and do stuff, and it doesn't matter what the stuff is. For some people, it's material success or external success. For some people, it's education and letters after their name. For some people, it's money. For some people, it's looking really good. For some people, it's having a good relationship or having healthy children or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what the thing is. There's nothing wrong with any of those things, by the way. They're all great if they're in line with your values. Yeah? But what happens is, in the attainment of them, I'm postponing my happiness and I keep pushing the goalposts back and I never quite get there. And so the experience starts to become that even when I do my best, it's still not enough. And so motivation begins to drop. So those of you guys who feel like you make some progress, but then, you fall off the wagon, this is probably at play here. And it should be at play here. Because if I'm treating myself like I'm not valuable, if I'm telling myself that happiness is always around the corner, and most of us started that in school. We said, hey, in primary school, when you get to high school, life's going to be awesome and things are going to be great and you'll get your own locker and tuck shop and pick your own subjects and blah, blah, blah. And you got there and it was probably better, may have been better. This is cool, but now you need to get to university. When you get to university, it's going to be awesome. There's going to be a uni bar and then you can really do what you want and you can get a job and you're going to be a big grown up. And you got to university and it was better. And then your head started again. Well, now you're in uni, well shit, you kind of got to build a living now. You got to get through this degree and then you got to get a job. And then everything's going to be good because you'll have your degree, you'll get your job, life's going to be amazing, you can get a relationship and a kids and a whatever. And you go and do that. And then you go, oh shit, I'm at the bottom of the rung. I'm just a grad. I need to work my way up. And through these behaviors, through this constant postponement of inner happiness, inner peace, inner value, you begin to lose trust with yourself and you begin to lose motivation because you should lose motivation. Because the experience is, even when I do my best, I'm still not there, it's still somewhere in the future. And after a couple of decades of that, we start to feel internally like, hey, you're playing me because you are playing yourself. So you probably should lose motivation. So you probably should stop and, beat yourself up if you're treating yourself that way. You should feel that way. And that's where this bully mind kicks in and starts telling us, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. If only you were there and so-and-so over there is doing better than you, so you need to do as good as them. And so then we just keep pushing ourselves to some, undefined point in the future that when we hit, gets moved anyway. And so guys, you can see how this starts to create this invisible force. You can see how this starts to create this worldview where now I'm stuck. And I'm just stuck repeating these patterns. So I might be trying to control things which are outside of my control to the point of stress, because that one's the most stressful by far. People that are constantly stressed, as soon as they turn up, I know they're dealing with powerlessness. Yeah? The abandonment stuff, abandoning myself, this one's the most emotionally painful and it often shows up in relationships, right? Relationships that aren't working for me, or relationships where I keep, having failed relationships, or people keep cheating on me, or I don't feel intimate, or I have a big wall up, and don't have the connection that I need. Any massive, 9 times out of 10, any relationship issues are coming back to self-abandonment stuff. And this is the most painful one. And that's where we abandon ourselves with those behaviors which end up causing us suffering. Whatever those behaviors are, external stuff or internal stuff, people pleasing or drugs or alcohol or work or whatever, spending money I don't have or whatever. Yeah, that's where those patterns show up. And that creates that worldview that this is who I am and this is what I need to do. And then the third one, that not good enough story, that one's by far the most draining. You'll achieve a whole lot of stuff, but it'll still kind of feel like, oh, it's just not enough, or it's good for a little bit, and then you just got to set the next goal. It's just this long, arduous, draining task where I just get short-term kind of shots of value. Short-term, I get on a little high when I achieve something, but then it's like, I nail the goal, and now there's another peak that I got to climb. And that just never ends. And so, can you see, guys, how that is then going to create these patterns for you that you've been already sharing with us? Can you see how that's going to set you up long-term for suffering? Right? Imagine, and I want you to imagine if you no longer had to do any of those things. Imagine, instead of trying to control everything and stress about things outside of yourself, you could just be cool and allow life to do its thing, and you just focus on what you can control. And you've heard that before, but actually doing it, actually practicing it, right? Imagine if you could feel so safe in yourself and so also just so solid and secure in yourself that you didn't need to abandon yourself for anyone or anything. Like, this is where I share all the time. Like, for me, I've gotten to a place with this work where, and I used to abandon myself for anyone all the time. I would lie when the truth would do. I would say what I thought you wanted to say and try to wear what you wanted me to wear, and you know, show up the way you wanted me to show up because I thought that would make you like me more. And over the years of doing this inner work, I've now at a place where I can go talk to a couple hundred people. You know, the last time we did a program like this, I shared a whole lot of my story and over 20,000 people did it. And when I do those things, I stop and I go, hey, you know what? And I say this to myself, no matter what happens here, even if in the middle of town, they put up this massive big, you know, LED screen, right? Billboard, and says Anthony Nowd is the biggest loser in history, and here are all the skeletons in his closet, and here are all the you know, embarrassing stuff that he's ever done. And there's a bit, by the way, and put it up for the whole world to see, and that, you know, if I was somehow important enough for them to do a whole expose on that and people pay attention, even if that happened, I will not abandon myself. I will not beat myself up. I will not judge myself. I will not run myself into the ground. Now, when you reach that point, you reach what we call unfuckwithable. You're free. You're free to be who you want in relationship, and I guarantee your relationships will improve. You're free to who you want to be in the world, in your friendships, in your family, in your workplace. The fear has been overcome. It doesn't mean there's no more fear ever, but it means that when it shows up, I'm willing to go through it and I'm willing to have it. I'm no longer willing to be driven by this story that tells me that my happiness is in the future. I no longer have a voice that tells me that I'm not good enough and you better go out and compare myself to other people and what if you fail and don't do the thing because you might stuff it up. Gone. That's when I talk about, guys, back from the very first training, that's what I talk about when it's going from seeing yourself as this person, identifying as this person, to a whole new identity. Right? To seeing and identifying as a different type of person, because this person over here, like I guarantee you, the one thing between the person that you are currently and the person that you want to be, the only difference is your ability to navigate these fears. Right? So imagine if you knew how to navigate these fears and they're no longer a thing. Well, quite literally, all the behaviors that are holding you back would stop. All the self-sabotage would stop. All the negative patterns would stop. And you would be willing to have the feelings that you're currently trying to avoid by doing those behaviors. And when you're willing to have those feelings, you would be unfuckwithable and you would just go and you would just live the life that you were meant to live. And you would just reach the potential that you were meant to fulfill. And I guarantee you, as you begin doing that, the road will unfold for you. The purpose will unfold. The purpose is already in you. People talk about find your purpose. It's like it's outside here somewhere. It's not, it's in you. You just got to stop treating yourself in the ways and believing the things about yourself that you're currently believing in order for it to come up. And this is the answer to that, guys. Right? And so I guess when you really do your inner work, what you really get is the ability to navigate those fears, overcome them, and in every single time grow. So we talked about every time you abandon yourself, you lose a bit of self-worth, you lose a bit of self-esteem, you lose a bit of self-respect. The opposite is also true. When you honor yourself, when you start doing the right thing by yourself in a healthy way, don't just bully or push yourself into it, because a lot of programs teach that and it ends up with more self-esteem issues, right? You don't just smash yourself. But if you can do it in a healthy way, and we teach that, it's called parenting the mind and supporting the body, right? When you do it in that way, every time I honor myself and do the right thing, from the tiny little things, I actually grow in self-esteem, I grow in self-worth, I grow in self-belief, I grow in self-trust, and eventually I get that new sense of self that we spoke about. You know, we spoke about the trip from Perth to Melbourne and changing a couple degrees and ending in Tassie. This is what that's about, but it's day in and day out. It's like from today, you will start building self-esteem when you begin doing this, right? So, quite honestly, guys, I know some of you be sitting there going, wow, I've got all three of them. I don't even really know what to start. And I get it now, and I see it. The person I am needs to change. And it's not just change the externals of my life. It's not rearrange the furniture on the Titanic, because we know where that's ending up, right? Nowhere happy. And I get the best day ever thing, and I've got the visualizations, and I got the intention setting, and I hear that. And now shit, you're nailing me with these fears. That's me, I got all three, but what do I do now? Well guys, the answer is in the next training I'm actually gonna run through you, because this is a lot of theory and this is awesome, but what I want you to know and what I really want you to experience is, how do I actually apply this in my life? Because theory is one thing. Like we've talked about, theory is one thing. You can read every single book that was ever written on how to swim. You can understand the strokes, you can understand the physiology, you can understand what needs to happen for the heart to be able to increase the cardiovascular performance. You can understand the temperatures of the water, everything in the world about swimming. There is. Learn it all inside out. Until you get into the water, you don't know how to swim. So guys, I want to know, those of you who are action takers, those who want to actually make the most of this, in the comments below this video now, tell me which of those fears shows up for you the most. Is it the powerlessness? Is it the abandonment? Is it the worthlessness or not good enough? And how are they playing out, right? How is that driving you to abandon yourself or do negative behaviors? Share that with me below here, guys. And then also share with me, are you an action taker? And I want you to affirm that if you are someone who is willing to take some action to actually change this stuff. Because if you don't, your life's going to stay the same. That's guaranteed. In fact, it's probably going to get worse. If you're abandoning yourself now currently, which you will be, we all do. If you're abandoning yourself currently, that will get worse, 100% guaranteed. So, are you willing to change that? Tell me below now. Because if you are, I cannot wait to share with you the opportunity that we have in the very next training. It is going to be epic on this webinar, guys. It's going to be live. I'll be there with you. I'll be able to answer your questions, one-on-one, and yeah, it's going to be very cool. That's how we walk through those practical steps like I already shared. But for now, guys, drop below, get your comments in and let me know how you go.